Hello, my loves, and welcome back to Along the Spiritual Journey. So, do not allow the ego to get so big that it ignores the needs of the human body. I have really been focused on this topic because I feel that even myself, I can tend to forget that the ego is a fabricated identity that's created through life experience, through a combination and a compilation of emotions that we like to experience or don't like to experience, with memories that we like to experience that we don't want to experience, and then we project it onto the future, right? And then we walk around perceiving the world that way. Sometimes that can get lost in translation, especially when, let's say, you're someone who's dedicated to learning. I love to read, I love to learn, I love to meet others who are dedicated to their craft, but sometimes people can get sucked into their craft so much that, yes, you become an expert and you are a master, but when you start dictating how others should experience their reality is where it starts to become a dangerous slide between the ego now negating what the human needs, because the human needs interaction. The human needs camaraderie. It needs community. So if you're so smart, because this is for my smarties out there, if you're so smart and you're wondering why you're isolated, you have to ask yourself, what are you doing that's isolating to others? Because again, it's not about impressing others, but if you want to communicate in a way that appeases your ego, you have to know how you're communicating with others' egos, right? And so for me, I like to remind myself that yes, I love to teach, but that does not mean I need to teach everybody, right? Every interaction that I have is not about me proving that I'm a good teacher or that I know how to hold a bunch of information and retain it enough to give it in any situation. That's not what teaching is about. Teaching is about knowing that I can create a structure for others to come along and utilize along a journey if they need it. I'm a specialized teacher because I'm talking about spirituality, the soul, consciousness, emotion work, along with spirit work. These are worlds that are not normally talked about, but because more people are having spiritual awakenings, it's important for me to share my journey, or at least my experience with this journey, and hope that they take something that can be applied to theirs. That's what I have to learn. But the ego wants to be like, well, I know and I've experienced, and you'll see. And even if they'll see, you don't want to get cocky and knowing that someone's going to be proven wrong. That's not what it's about either. You don't want to be so caught into what you understand that you can talk about. Because I know people who can talk about one topic all day, ins and outs, everything about it, but they have no social decorum. They don't know how to interact with people. Now, I said before, I don't like social decorum when it comes to trying to appease a certain group, but as a whole, none of us want to be spit in our face, right? So I think as a collective community, we agree getting spit in the face is not how we want to be greeted. And so that is the basis of what I mean, where it's like, know what your body needs and how to interact, and then know how to express what your soul ego, how they like to interact, because all creation comes from a place of soul connection, because that soul connection is tapped into source that feeds it memories of the past and memories of things that it used to do or things it remembers, and allows it the opportunity to bring it to this reality. And this is where we create things that we say we like to do when we come down to our routines and habits and activities that bring us joy or comfort, or just something that numbs our mind and experience. Again, there's nothing wrong with numbing the experience if you understand that it's temporary. But if your whole experience is you're trying to numb the whole life you have, that's going to be in the in that section of addiction, right? Because now you're no longer experiencing life, you're experiencing numbness of whatever you're searching for or not searching for. So the ego is about trying to keep balance. It is always about equilibrium. You want to feed the ego enough to stay confident and remain a part of society, but you also want to pull back some to preserve and protect itself, so it's not always giving everything away to everyone. That's why when we say like you you don't want to mask yourself as much. I mean, we're taught that masking is survival, And so people mask. And don't get me wrong, I still mask out of pure muscle memory sometimes. Let's say if I'm out in a club or something and I'm hanging out with people and, again, I act in a way that I might not normally act on the street. That for me is not my ego directly saying this is who I am. It's just an expression of energy. But remembering that just because in the club I'm Rico Suave and I can talk to everybody doesn't mean that once I get out of the club that I'm a social butterfly on the street. It's a weird thing to try to make sense of, but it is about knowing that you gotta know how to feed the ego, right? You just gotta know. You gotta know your environment, you gotta know your crowd, and you gotta know the eyes that you have on you because you want people around you who encourage you. It's fun to be around a group of dancers because they'll appreciate what you're doing because it's about expression. People who aren't dancers, who witness good dancers, will then judge you because they're saying, well, that's not good dancing. Even if they can't do it, now they're a critic and they can critique it because they have a comparison. This is where the ego comes in. You have to know how to balance it. I hope that example made sense. Like my brain goes in so many different pathways and I be trying to redirect it into one. So I hope it resonates with those it needs to resonate with. But the purpose of this topic is to don't let the ego get so confident in its human experience that it denotes that the human is still experiencing things that cannot be explained. Because even if we can recognize that, oh, we can give it all these different psychological textbook names and this disorder and this and that, you're still describing energy. A human decided what a word was. A human decided what the definition was. A human decided the context. So therefore, it is being funneled through somebody else's vision. It's being funneled through somebody else's definition. And the human experience has no real definition. We don't really know what we're experiencing because it keeps evolving through us spiritually. So as we, again, have spiritual awakenings and we have vision and insight into our future, respect where that source is coming from. Do not just convince yourself that it belongs to you. An example is we do this with science. Science is the only answer because science. Yes, a bunch of humans agree that their observation is correct, and as long as their observation remains correct, they are correct. That is what science is, okay? Do not get convinced that that is the truth. Observation is the truth of everyone's reality. So however anyone has experienced it is true. And so we have to start compiling more of that into spaces where we agree that this space is meant for creation. This space is meant for defined now. This space is meant for used to work, no longer works. Because a lot of our history is based on what no longer works, trying to define what it is now, and it doesn't make sense. And so this is why you don't want to let your ego be so convinced where you're saying stuff like, well, I don't believe and I don't trust. And that's fine. That is your soul speaking out loud, but your human body is still experiencing it, and it doesn't know what to believe or trust. So don't go creating anxiety to its own experience. Let it be able to trust you and knowing that you're open enough to allow it to experience itself in its own existence. I know that makes sense to the right people, and I hope it does. All right. Love you.